What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday live stream. Today we have the one and only Thomas on. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you, my man?
I am doing wonderful, thank you. We figured tonight a fun one would be talking about reefing for yourself and not for the likes or the internet and everything else that strives us to do crazy things.
It's true. It is a topic that I had touched on a while back in one of the
Mm-hmm.
videos I had done, which was, I don't know if you remember it. I did a video on how to save money while reefing, which is kind of like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But one of the first things I say is like, don't spend money on things that you don't need or don't want just because you see them everywhere else. And it's kind of in that vein, but then Ryan Bachelor has been doing those talks, and they're up on the BRS TV YouTube channel if you want to watch them. But the last one he posted was talking about not worrying about, essentially, I'm summing it up very succinctly, but it's
Mm-hmm.
basically not worrying about what other people think and what trends are going on or what's going on Instagram, and really focusing on what you love about the hobby and what you like and what you want to do, and just thinking about that. And I think it all comes down to the old saying that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah,
And I think it's really easy for a lot of us to see what other people are doing and then judge
mm-hmm.
our own tanks pretty harshly based on that.
It's true.
And I really like to continue that conversation where we reflect on the fact that this hobby is for us to enjoy. It
Mm-hmm.
is very personal to you and what your tastes are and what you want to achieve and what you like. And that if you betray yourself by trying to do things that maybe you're not ready for or not actually that interested in, or are just trying to put things or piece things together so that you can impress somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find failure more often than you're going to find success. And especially in terms of being able to enjoy the hobby.
Yeah, no, it is true. Like, how many times do you chase after some hot coral just because you've seen, 50 Instagram pictures of it and you're like, oh, I need that too, right? Or if you didn't see
Yes.
that, you probably wouldn't care. You probably wouldn't need to spend $100 on some little teeny frag of it, and you'd probably be just as happy. So you do totally get caught up on it.
You do. And it's not even just like the coral, but sometimes it's the equipment.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's the type of coral you want to keep. Sometimes there's like a trend, like LPS, went through a huge surge and they're still pretty prominent, where like
Hmm.
SPS started to take a back seat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use myself as an example. So the last tank I set up when my studio was upstairs, because I moved back down,
Hmm.
um, I set up an LPS dominated tank. I hate it. Like
Yeah.
I'm a mixed reef guy, like an
Hmm.
SPS dominant mixed reef guy. I always have been. Um, I d like, I like my fish and I like my corals, but when I look at the tank, it just looks like work to me now. Like, it doesn't speak to me the way it should, and I screwed up because I thought to myself, "This is what people are kinda interested in right now. It'd be cool if that's behind me in the studio," and,
Hmm.
I work, basically on YouTube, and people
Yep.
have to look at the tank that's behind me, and I'm like, "I'll do this for everybody else, and maybe I'll have fun." I did not have fun. I should have known I wasn't gonna have fun. I shouldn't have done it. That tank's gone through all kinds of stuff because, like, I essentially, uh, I don't wanna say I, like, left it to its own devices, but in a big way, I did. Like, I
Yeah.
do the bare minimum to keep it going. Like, I've gone through a massive aptasia problem, which
Hmm.
the nudibranchs are doing a great job, by the way.
Excellent.
Um, yes, they almost have that cleaned up. But, like, I know if that tank was a SPS dominated mixed reef, I wouldn't have been in that position because I would have been much more interested in what I was doing,
Hmm.
and I would have been a lot more interested in the ongoings in that tank and taking care of them and paying attention to what's happening. And I betrayed my own interests for the
Yeah.
interests of others, right?
The
What I thought
trend.
other people would like,
Hmm.
and it turned out to be a bad decision. So, I think it's really important, and, I'd love to get your feedback on this too, Devin. But I think it's really important that you really think about what it is that the reefing hobby is to you, what you enjoy so far. And if you're brand new, like, you have so much exploring to do that this conversation is somewhat moot.
Hmm.
But you're going to start, most people are going to start on the easy end of things anyways. But actually, that's a great point. that also you shouldn't go straight to the hardest thing just because that's what everybody else is doing, because you have a
Mhm.
higher chance of failure and a higher chance of not enjoying the hobby. But
Yep.
like long story short, you have to focus on what speaks to you. Don't focus on what the internet thinks is cool.
It's true.
Does that make
It
sense?
it does. And a lot of people do follow the trends, and I don't know. It's I blame, Instagram, TikTok, everything else, because you see all these whatever coral's hot and everyone wants it. That's all you see for a while. And it made me
Yeah.
laugh about the LPS thing because when there was, the Indo ban or like some of those bans for a while, you couldn't get LPS. So all of a sudden they're popular again because they're hard to get, right? Where if you scroll back, 4 or 5 years, they're cheap and easy. Then all of a sudden they're expensive and rare because no one's getting fresh ones in. So
Right.
it's funny how stuff will trend like that. It's kind of like scarcity, like yellow tangs. At one point, they're cheap, plentiful, can't get them. All of a sudden they're 10 times the price, and everyone's like, "Oh, yellow tangs again." Like it's funny how riding that trend where I'm like, cool, it's a bright yellow fish. It does a good job in my tank. That's why I liked it. But yeah, it's funny like how people want it because they can't have it, and that's a weird
Yes.
scarcity trend. Which not a cheap way to reef is chasing the trends for sure.
No, absolutely not. And it is funny that as soon as some things, it's like we took it for granted. Yellow
Hmm.
tangs have been around forever. They were like
Yep.
the de facto tang that you get when you're starting reefing. If you want a tang, you get a yellow tang because they're plentiful and
Hmm.
relatively inexpensive. But yeah, as soon as they're no longer easy to get a hold of, they're expensive. And the funny thing is they're like still a great fish. They're
Oh yeah.
no better or worse than they ever were. They're just more expensive and more difficult to get. That's the
They're,
only thing that happened.
over the years, I've realized they're kind of jerks though. Like they're jerks
Oh,
to
they're
most other fish.
all tangs are jerks.
I
All
know, but
tangs have the potential to have some serious jerkiness.
yellows are more jerky. But I'd agree. So, okay,
Oh man.
reef theory. Been hesitant to update my threads and participate in the community because of "you're doing it wrong" comments, which
That yeah.
that is big, and that does stop people from sharing it. And the thing is, you know, you're wrong in that person's opinion, and you're probably right in another 20 people's opinion because there's so many different ways to run a reef tank, and if your tank is thriving, obviously you're doing it right. So,
Absolutely. And just so you're aware, even before things got really, you know, forward facing on the internet, especially with Instagram and all of that fun stuff, Facebook. Even on the forums, we were not immune to this before. You'd always get people with strong opinions that might go against what your practices have been or what you've been doing,
mhm,
telling you that. And to some degree, you kind of just need to have a thick skin
yep,
and understand that some people just don't have very good manners on the internet. And some people are, might be coming from a place of trying to help, but are very kind of blunt about it, which
mhm,
isn't very palatable. Like, I don't want to be told that I'm doing it wrong. I not everybody is open to unsolicited feedback, right?
yep.
So I totally get it. And if
Especially when you're like, I
staying
thought this was awesome. I'm sharing my tank. Why
Dude,
are you being a jerk
yeah,
about it?
absolutely. But going right to that point of like comparisons to Thief of Joy and all of that
Hmm.
stuff, it is so important to not care. And if you're going to
Hmm.
care, I think not posting it online is the right thing to do.
Yep.
Because, like I was saying, you're reefing for yourself. If you're reefing for the internet, you're doing it wrong. Don't do, don't do it to post it online unless it's your literal job.
Yeah.
Just don't bother because you're going to get a lot of comments. You're going to get a lot of feedback. I think it's great when you do post stuff because I
Hmm.
think it's a great learning opportunity for other people. Depending on, like, I used to keep a tank journal and talk about what I was doing and how I was doing it as a way to keep track of it for myself,
Hmm.
and also to share that with others. I was one of those people who was open to feedback at times and at other times would be defending my position. That was just, it happens all the time, especially in forums. But, ultimately, if you're not comfortable doing that or you don't want to hear what other people have to say, sure, we might lose some inspiration for some people by not having your tank out there for people to see, but in the same, way, we're not going to have it out there for anybody to criticize either.
Hmm.
So if that's what makes it easier for you and not sharing it, not getting negative feedback, make sure that you're able to enjoy your tank, then absolutely don't post it anywhere. And quite frankly, I think oh, do I want to say that? Maybe. I think we post too much crap online. Like we post way too much, way too often.
Mm,
Just as people, like everybody has really gone heavy in this. I work on the internet and I'm saying this out loud,
yep.
but like I really don't pay attention to my social media anymore for this exact reason.
Mm,
Like just generally speaking. Um, so I'm just applying that exact same theory to reef aquariums, and it's funny that it didn't come to me naturally. Like I had to watch Ryan's video that kind of went through it, and I went, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense." And then I realized I had done it to myself. I screwed myself over by like doing things not for me but for other people. And I was like, you know what? The next reef tank I set up, which I'm in the process of doing now, is going to be one for me versus for one for everybody else.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, back to
Yes.
your point, yeah, it's don't post it up there if getting feedback that you don't want, negative or otherwise, isn't your jam, just don't post it
Yeah.
up. It's
The
fine.
yeah. Quick shout out to Shelly. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Delivery matters with advice, 100%. And you don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
tone, you don't have context on the keyboard warriors.
No.
And remember to hit ReefDudes like button. If you're joining, hit the like button. Um, Now, to what we're just saying too about if you're don't have a thick skin or you're not open to criticism, not post it. But the funny thing is too, I find you're always more critical on your own tank than anyone else's. Like everyone's like, "Oh, it's amazing," and I'm like, "I don't know. I
Yeah.
see one aptation in that corner, right?" Like you're always more critical on yourself, and you're probably loving your tank otherwise, right? So not having that negativity or criticism goes a long way to keeping you happy and not obsessing over stupid, pointless things, which we would do anyways, but it's feeding it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I would say for somebody who's more seasoned, who's been around for a while, that is even more so true. I don't know how many times I've gone to like a fellow hobbyist's house and I was like, wow, your tank looks fantastic. And I'm just, taking it all in. And they're like, no, I've got some bubble algae right here. And there's one aptasia on that coral. Like the grand scheme of things, this tank is popping. Like it
Yeah.
looks really great. Not a lot of problems. Like not unless you're really looking for them. But if it's your tank, you know where they all are because you are the tender of this garden. You know where
Yep.
every weed is. Um, so yeah, for if you've been around a while and you're posting up for inspiration or maybe to ask a question or maybe just to journal your own tank, that's
Yep.
probably a good idea because you're right. You're going to be a worse critic. But if you're brand new and you
Mm-hmm.
start posting stuff up, you gon' get like I've seen it everywhere, Facebook everywhere.
Yep.
You're gonna get a lot of unsolicited advice or the worst is not even advice, just straight up you did it wrong. You can't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. That's a mistake. Like, and that can be super discouraging, especially when you're brand new. So I
Mm.
think in a lot of ways, especially if you're newer, if you don't want that kind of feedback, having a friend who's in the hobby or finding a mentor, somebody that isn't a jerk, and learning from them specifically. It could even be your local fish store. Like as long as
Yep.
it's somebody who's got a tank that you can admire
Mm-hmm.
and you want to know how they did it and you want to replicate that, having one person to talk to who can coach you through it when you ask for advice versus
Yep.
just getting a whole
Unsolicited.
bunch of unsolicited negativity might be a better avenue.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then another thing I find too, like a lot of people will follow 20 people's advice and
Yeah.
all those methods may not jive together. So it is, ideally find, someone with a beautiful tank that you like and, kind of copy their method and it goes a long way. Dun-dun-dun. Reef Theory was in the room for Ryan's presentation at Rap Cali. It definitely hit home. Yeah, no, it was
Yes.
it was a really good talk, and it kind of helped half inspired today's talk too about not following the internet trolls and reefing for yourself. And too, like a big thing too is having a tank within your lifestyle. Like obviously
Oh,
your
big time.
lifestyle is an LPS, right? But some people you want a nice easy tank. Like a Zoe Garden is a beautiful tank and super low maintenance, so that could be a great
Yeah.
way to go. If you have no kids and tons of time and you want to do, some crazy acro dominated mixed reef tanks that require more love and attention, I mean, that's another great way to go, right? But it's kind of what makes you happy. What do you go for? Like,
Yeah, having the time to take care of the tank is an important piece of it for sure. Like if you have a really busy life and you travel a lot, you're either throwing a lot of money at the system to automate it so
mm-hmm,
that or to have a tank sitter, whichever, to accommodate that lifestyle. Um, and on the other side of the coin, if you expect yourself to make time for a tank, you better have interest in it. So, like, this is what did it with me in the LPS dominated tank. I'm not bad at taking care of corals, but if I lose interest in what I'm doing, I have a
Mhm.
very hard time making myself take care of it. Like, my discipline is lacking. So, like, if you set up a tank and you lose interest in it, I mean, you're turning it into work, right?
Yeah.
If you're not really into what you're doing, you're going to find it more difficult to convince yourself to continue to keep up with it
Yeah.
versus if you love what you're doing, like, what
You'll
do
you'll
they
find
say?
time
Yeah, like, you'll never work a day in your life, something blah blah blah.
if
But
you do what you
basically,
love.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So, if you don't love your tank, you're gonna have a hard time taking care of it. And if you, play to your interests with your tank and don't try to set up something because you want somebody else to think it's cool, but
Mhm.
rather you just think it's cool for yourself, you're gonna find it a lot easier to make the time to take care of it. So, even if you have a busy life, if you're like, I love this tank and I'm willing to forego playing Call of Duty tonight to do my water change,
Yeah.
then you're going to make the time, right? Whatever your free time that you have available, you're going to put it towards a hobby that you're enjoying. If you are not enjoying it, you're going to play Call of Duty,
Yeah.
right?
You'll
You're
push it
not
off,
going to go
push it
take
off.
care of your tank. Exactly. And
Yeah.
then you end up in a bad situation.
No, 100% with you on that one. It's funny that you weren't interested in LPS, but the mixed reef. And like, I totally agree because I always end up going back to mixed reef. Like, it's hard for me not to do mixed reef. Like, it's a challenge. I had this goal of doing a Goni only tank in my nano, but then Zoa snuck in, then some bounce mushrooms snuck in, and other stuff snuck in, and some rock flowers. And now it's like
Yeah.
my mind's back to like, oh, do I try a, a Goni dominant tank in my Nias tank beside me, which would be pretty sweet, but we'll see. It'll still end up being a mixed reef in the end, but
Dude, every time.
I
You know
know.
why? Like, okay, so I've done this so many times, okay, where I'd start off a tank. Usually, I have a pattern that I follow, and I've followed it over and over and over and over. And the one time
Mm,
I broke it is with this LPS tank. But I'll get the rock in, get the sand in, get everything going. The first corals that go in are always softies, some
yeah.
kind of leather coral, some polyps, like just a bunch of softies.
Mm,
Then over time, I slowly start adding a couple LPS, maybe a Digi. Digi is usually the first SPS that I stick in the tank. And then it's just more SPS and then more SPS, maybe a Zoa here and an LPS there, like usually in the form of a Micromusa or something like that.
mm,
And then, or like a Favites or Favia. And then it's just a whack load more SPS and then clams. Like,
yeah.
it's the formula I follow every time. The one time I'm like, nah, forget the formula. I'm gonna just try something for the camera. And then, like, it just doesn't work out for me. But
That's
yeah,
fair.
it's funny. We're creatures of habit. We know what we like, so we just
Yeah.
do that over and over and over again. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yep.
I think it's what should happen once you know what you're doing and you know what you like.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean your path too. I mean, it probably helps your tanks become more established too, loading up a bunch of easier stuff and then swapping them out as time goes on. Because, they're adding, good bacteria, good
Oh,
diversity to your
absolutely.
system.
Yeah. It's the impatient man's game is what that is. I'm
It
like, I
is.
want this SPS tank yesterday. So I'm just gonna put a different coral in for now so that I can enjoy the tank instead of it being an empty box of water for a while. But I
That's
know,
fair.
like, and nowadays I think a lot more people are getting into the just like load it up with coral right away and use
Mm,
the coral to start the microbiome,
yeah.
which is great.
Mm,
That seems to work really well. I have no qualms with that. I do the same thing. Just I start with corals and I'm like, you are not going to die no matter what happens.
I mean, that's a good path to success, right? Is there any corals that you've done that have become invasive and you couldn't take out afterwards?
Blue Anthelia.
Is that blue star polyps?
No, Anthelia, like the
What's anthelia?
micro Anthelia, the blue micro Anthelia. Oh my gosh. So while you look it up, I'll explain it. It is a tiny, tiny, tiny micro Anthelia. We're talking like a quarter of an inch across, maybe at the absolute, no, even
Oh,
less.
those are blue polyps. Okay, same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, okay.
those guys,
That's what I thought.
not only are they super hardy and they spread really fast, they're also broadcast spawners. So they start popping up everywhere and then they grow in between everything, on top of everything. They just don't care. So
Yep.
that is probably the most invasive invasive coral I've ever added to a tank. Star polyps is easier to deal with because you can just peel it off.
Yeah.
That stuff you cannot peel off.
Do you know how to get rid of it?
Blowtorch.
Or a less destructive way, flabenzidol at a
Oh,
higher
no
dose
way.
will get rid of it. Uh-huh.
Will it mess
I
up
was on
other corals?
it's used to get rid of, isn't it like flatworms? Not flabenzidol. Is what was it called? The hydroids.
I
It
have no
works on
idea.
hydroids, and it also works on those guys.
Oh, awesome. Well, there
Yeah.
you go.
So
So
just
at
for
least
future,
there's a way to get rid of it.
I had a battle with them many years ago. So
They're so prolific. I added them on purpose too. I was like, oh, those are cute. And
yeah,
then I
they're like
stuck them
tiny.
in.
Yep, tiny little purple clove polyps.
Never again.
I didn't know the technical name was Anthelia, so I learned something new.
They are, I'm pretty sure they're a Anthelia.
I just called them purple polyps or purple clove polyps. They
That's
are.
a
I
good name.
Googled image Anthelia just to see if it was what I thought it was.
Oh yeah, it is totally.
Yeah, same thing.
Sweet.
So that's a good one. Hydroids. Yep. Thank you, Phil. So yeah. So I mean, that's the one caveat is, don't add stuff that you're going to regret later. But most corals you can take out pretty easily.
Oh, absolutely. Fish, on the other hand,
That's tricky.
it's usually more of an undertaking. Have you ever added a fish that was like super hard to get rid of after?
I remember a flame angel I had one time that I wanted to evict because it kept munching on all my coral. Like beautiful fish, but my corals were suffering greatly. That thing was a nightmare to catch. It was so fast, and it would hide under rocks and everywhere. Like, it took me a while to get that one out.
Yep, that's a tough one. I had a rabbit fish that took a liking to corals, and he was tough to get out. I ended up having to tear the tank down to get him out, but
it's crazy. It's a lot of work. The other one I had one time was one of the damsels. I feel like it was an azure, which are usually fairly peaceful, but I had one that would nip me every time I put my hand in, like near where I used to have Micromucil Little Island. Every time I went there, he would nip me. I couldn't come within like a foot of it. So eventually I evicted him and gave him away just because I got tired of getting bitten every time my hand went in the tank. No other fish has attacked me like that before, but that one was like ruthless.
I've had like maroon clowns and tomato clowns and all kinds of clownfish just absolutely tear my knuckles apart.
Yeah.
They get pretty nasty.
Would you add them again now? Or would you like, no, my hands.
You know what's really funny? I was literally just thinking about adding a maroon clown to, I want to do, okay. So this, I know we were saying earlier that we're creatures of habit and we know what we like, so we just do that. Mm-hmm. I'm in no way advocating for just always repeating the same thing, never change anything. Otherwise, you might hate it and not like it, and then your tank will fail. Mm-hmm. Not the case. So I have done tanks other than that have worked. So I did a bubble tip anemone and pink skunk clownfish tank that was really fun, and that's all that was in it was just bubble tips and pink skunk clowns, and I really liked it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to also be doing a small carnivorous predator tank. Yeah, of course, carnivorous. I don't know what my problem is tonight. Just so you know, everybody, it's like 9:30 at night for me, and I'm tired. All right, so no, of course, anything for you, buddy.
I've been up since like 3:30 in the morning. If it makes you feeling better.
That's terrible. Go to sleep. Yep. Not right now because you're on camera, but I'm going to be setting up a small.
This is now the Thomas tank. Stream. Good night.
So I've never done before, but I have a lot of interest in keeping a frogfish, like a small angler, RODI, cool. Specifically. I was trying to find a clown. They're very difficult to find in my area, so I've settled on just a white and red RODI frogfish. Yep. And I was actually thinking, if I was going to put a clownfish in there, it would have to be something like a maroon because it would be big enough to not get swallowed and aggressive enough to like fight back if the frogfish tried to go after it. So I might end up with a maroon clownfish, which I haven't had in years. I love them though.
They're pretty.
But yeah. So yeah, what I was trying to get at was I'm not discouraging anybody ever from exploring the hobby and trying new things and seeing what they like.
That's all the fun.
I'm only discouraging you from doing it because somebody else thinks it's awesome. Like, by all means, if somebody's like, hey, this thing's really awesome, you should check it out, I'm sure
you're like, it is awesome. then yeah.
Yeah, do your research, and if it sounds like a fun idea or a fun plan and you wanna give it a shot, go for it. You'll have the interest to continue. But
Hmm.
if somebody like, if your passion is LPS and somebody's like, "Oh, you should really try getting into SPS, they're a lot of fun. Check out all these things you can do, it looks really great." Or you're looking at some SPS tanks online and you're like, "Yeah, that could be cool. Like, people seem to really like that. Maybe I should give it a shot, you know, it could be interesting."
Yeah.
You
The
might
funny.
turn around and find that if you do the research, that's not what you want,
Yeah.
and, like, you'll quickly learn that keeping SPS and LPS together is very difficult.
Hmm.
Like, giving the flow for SPS without blowing tissue off of LPS is an actual battle that Devin and I
Hmm.
have faced many a time being mixed reef tank guys.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, you just might turn around and be like, "I hate this." But you might even just through research of seeing if you like it, get to that point before you've invested yourself and your time and found out that you don't like it and then have to like
Mm.
backpedal your tank into being something that, you know, other than what you've turned it into. But yeah,
Yeah. It's Yeah, it's just so hard not to do a mixed reef because you like different corals and then you just add what you like and eventually you have a mixed reef and then you got to figure out how to deal with it.
because you want everything.
Everything pretty.
You're like, dude, I totally get it. Like, I really appreciate LPS corals. I really like softies,
Yeah.
but I love SPS.
Do you know what's
I don't know
funny though?
why, but I
New
do.
people don't because they're like, it's a stick, it's boring, where LPS has movement. But I don't know why, but a lot of people, once you're in the hobby long enough, you seem to get sucked into these shaggy little polyps on sticks. But
I think there's something about the fact that they are a reef building coral
yeah.
that is, um, there's something about them. I think it partially comes down to the fact that you never know what they're gonna grow like, right?
Hmm.
If you get an LPS, you know what shape it's gonna be because
Yeah.
they have
It'll
very,
just expand in
very
that shape.
repeatable, yes, predictable patterns of growth.
Hmm.
SPS do not. You give them different flow, they grow different. You give them light in a different place, they grow towards that. Like, and the other thing with LPS, you can't really change, in my experience, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you
Hmm.
can't really get them to change their color very much.
Hmm.
Like, you give them adequate lighting and they get what color they're going to get. They don't change an absolute ton. You underlight them, they don't look as great. You overlight them, they go pale, but like whatever their color is what their color is going to be.
Hmm.
SBS, even just getting them to achieve their like perfect coloration or what you'd consider perfect comes down to so many factors. And like if you light a Tenius, for example, with, you know, daylight, just like
Hmm.
white daylight, you get one color out of it. You start pumping it with primarily blues, you get a totally different color out of it. You mix it, you get something in between. But like you can actually finagle the colors. There's, you know what it is?
But
There are challenges in keeping SPS and things you can do to change the way it looks and or behaves or it grows or the color that really, I guess, gives us something to chase after.
it,
Once we've done
yeah,
it for so long and you're like, "I know how to do this."
it
You're like, "How do I
feeds.
make this less boring?" "Oh, I'll just do the hardest thing possible and see how far I can take it."
Well, it feeds that obsessive ADHD personality where you're like, "There's, I can try this to make it better. I can try this to make it better. You know, what if I
Yeah.
do this? You have the obsession of mastering it, that
Yeah,
side, and the
absolutely.
ADHD side of trying all the bazillion different methods of stuff to see what happens and what works with it, which I
Yes.
think is funny because there's so many rabbit holes that it can lead you down.
And you know what? I bet you that's half the reason that I failed with I keep saying I failed, that I feel like I'm failing that LPS tank. I think it's the fact that, you know, it was boring. I
Hmm.
hate to say it. They're like I care for the animals. Like I care
Yeah.
about. I don't want my corals to die. Like I'll make sure nothing bad happens to them. But like I am bored of that tank, like nobody's business. And I
Hmm.
think that's why. I think it's because it lacks the uh the challenge and dynamics of what an SPS dominated tank brings to the table.
Yep.
And I have yet to ever make an SPS dominated tank where I was like, yes, this is the pinnacle version of a tank that Thomas can create. I feel like there is still work to be done in that department. Like
That's always.
I've had some cool tanks and I've had some success. And I
Hmm.
like if somebody's like, can you keep SPS? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. but I've never hit what I would consider my dream tank where I was like, this is the success that I was trying to achieve. So I feel like there's still that's where the interest lies. Maybe it's
Yeah.
in the I haven't done what I want to achieve yet, so I have to keep trying until I do.
So, okay, to the earlier comment about one thing with SPS too, another thing for me is I love how it changes the structure of the tank over time. Like it's
Yes.
not static; it's ever evolving. You know, it fills in more, it branches out different directions. It adds so much more depth and 3D-ness to the tank over time. I think that's one big thing that I love about it. And yeah, you don't always know what it's going to end up like, right? Like it is a bit of a surprise, and it's cool to watch your tank evolve over time. But it's also a double-edged sword where like now I look at my tank and it feels like overgrown jungle where I'm like, do I hack it back? Do I leave it? You know, how much flow am I sacrificing through these like football-sized colonies of stuff? But
That is a problem a lot of people would like to have, Devin.
but it's like
No,
but
I
like,
totally get it, dude. I've been there. I've had colonies of like bubblegum digi that were so big that like every time I clean the tank, I knock a piece off and I'm like, when do I trim this? Like at what stage can I comfortably trim this and not feel like I'm setting the tank back somehow? Or like, do I get rid of this coral so I can make room for
yeah,
more other corals that I might like? Maybe I'm bored of this one.
that's what
But
I've been debating too.
yeah, but I think that's like even once you get to that stage, I think it's pretty easy to say I'm successful at what I'm doing. But
Well,
also that is a
that
part of the
tank
hobby,
is
man.
successful.
Yeah, yeah.
If I throw a tank in my water box, it's Thrive and Happy. If I throw one in my Nias, you know, it's 50-50. It's still, you know, not a mature system yet. Still
Oh
a young
yeah,
buck.
that's you'll get it there.
Yeah, I know, but
Like
it's
if you
but I'm
did
just
it
saying
once, you
though,
could do it again.
I know that. But it's like it's not just like me per se. It's also the tank, right? It's
Oh yeah,
mature. It's, you
absolutely.
know, it's no longer that young wild buck. Fill in the comments with SPS. Just when everything's looking awesome, some kind of issue pops up every time. Yeah, your tank looks pristine, and you got like a couple weeks to enjoy it, and then something will happen.
It is always the case. You know what it really is? Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have come to this conclusion at some point, but your tank is doing awesome and then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden something happens. That's something that happens is always something that you did and or could have avoided by doing
Yep.
something else. So
Yeah.
like if I'm ever at a point where I'm like, man, my tank's wicked. It's that moment where I start relaxing on the things that I normally do because my tank's looking okay. So I'm like, oh,
Yep.
maybe I'll just like ease off a bit and let it coast. Don't do
Mm-hmm.
that. Everything you've been doing to get your tank to that point
Yeah.
is the reason it looks that way. So as soon as you like try to take the hands off the wheel and just be like, "Nah, I get to just no, you don't. You never get to relax again."
Yep.
You did an SPS tank. You get to do something every day forever.
You know,
Um,
I'm surprised my water box is doing how good it is, considering the neglect that it's had of having a kid.
oh,
Because
dude.
prior, it got so much love and attention. Now it's pretty coasting. Like, it's like, oh, I should top that off once in a while. It's like, oh, that rhino, I should fix that. Like, it's terrible. But that's the beauty of a mature tank is you can slack a bit more.
Yeah, you have two things going for you. The tank's quite mature, and the second
Mm-hmm.
thing is you have a lot of water volume. I know you
Yeah.
have a lot of biomass in that water volume, but
Mm-hmm.
like what is that? 150 gallons, 170 gallons?
200-ish.
There you
180,
go,
200.
200. That's even better.
Yeah.
I don't know how big your tank is. I just know it's big. It's a big peninsula.
Yeah.
But dude, yeah, that's a lot of water volume. So
Mm-hmm.
even that biomass is going to take a while to get that water to degrade in any meaningful way, whether it's through like uptake of trace elements and stuff. And I know you
Yep.
have a ton of automation on these systems
That
too,
helps too.
which makes life easier.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Shamelessly, I haven't tested the parameters on my nano in like so long. Just blindly gets dosed on the doser. So,
it's just
but you
it
know,
whatever's happening is happening very slowly. I'm gonna say you should probably test it soon just to find out. But like if you have it on an automation of any kind for dosing, like it's gonna take a
it gets a
while.
couple mils a day as well for reef, and that's it.
Oh, that's probably
But
fine.
but
What is that,
stuff
like
is
5
growing.
gallons?
14.
14? Even
Yeah,
better.
yeah. You got a water change last week for the first time in a while.
Nice.
So it's
You
good to
did
give it love
good.
once in a while. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm dealing with dinos again. It's annoying.
Yeah, I can't wait to deal with all that stuff again. New tanks are fun.
I know, right?
Oh man.
I know. In the chat, yeah.
What would
carbo-2 lime, or carbo lime, but it's carbo-2 lime, is CO2 scrubber media. It's, at least in Canada, it was one of the more affordable ones to buy in bulk.
Yeah, you can just buy like a 5-gallon pail of it for a couple $100 or something.
Like $150 ish from like a veterinary
Something like
supply site.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So have you ever, Devin, personally run into a situation where you did something with a tank based on thinking about what it might do for like your YouTube followers or what other people might think, and then like regretted it
Oh,
after the fact?
so many things over the years, man. Like,
let's hear a couple.
oh no, it's like the amount of screwing around with my tank that I've done over the years for the sake of YouTube videos is ridiculous. Like, there's so many setbacks with coral instability because I'm like, oh, I'm going to use a CO2 scrubber, or not a CO2 scrubber, like an algae scrubber. And then later I'm like, all right, let's build an algae reaction. We'll use that now. And I'm like, okay, let's try this method now. Like, changing methods on a constant basis is terrible for stability for a tank. It's great for learning and experimenting and teaching, but not so good for your tank. So part of the reasons I slowly got more tanks is so that I can like spread out the experimental trials on different systems so that I don't anger
So you're
one
not
too much.
punishing the same tank all the time?
Basically, yeah. Because
Nice.
like tanks like stability, right? Like they like,
Absolutely.
get in their groove, as it gets established, things are consistent, things are happy. When you constantly change stuff, your corals are gonna have to readapt again. So
Yeah.
too much messing with your tank is trouble. Like, there's something to be said about keeping your hands out of your tank as well, right? Like, you're not introducing all those oils off your skin and soap and the world into your tank.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, not touching your tank definitely has its benefits as well, like within reason. But
Yeah. No,
did
neglecting the maintenance you normally do is what you want to avoid. You don't want to end up in a situation where you take your hands off the wheel and stop doing the things you would normally do to keep your tank running.
yeah,
But I agree. Like, you also don't want to be elbows deep in your tank all the time or constantly trying a different method for a different problem that you may or may not have in the
yeah,
future. Like, oh, okay. So I'm gonna say this out loud, and I don't care who's listening. We, especially at the beginning of like with the new tank, we have this culture right now where we have to buy all of the gear and all of the stuff and have it all set up and all running all at the beginning right away. And we think that's going to make the tank work well. I think nobody's there's going to be something's going to fall from the ceiling or something. I think that we would be better off starting with the bare minimum and building off of that versus getting everything at the beginning.
yeah. Start simple, and as you decide you need stuff, then get it.
Yeah, like I'm setting up right now a Red Sea Max Nano XL to act as that predator tank at the beginning.
Yep.
Just keep in mind, it's a warty frogfish. This thing's gonna get 6 inches max as an adult. They start off like
Question:
tiny.
what are you gonna
Sure.
feed him?
I'm gonna I got a whackload of frozen saltwater. What are they called? Silverfish.
Oh, silver sides,
Sand eels. They're not silver sides.
sardines.
Silver sides are, I don't know what they are. They're from the Asian store, but they're a saltwater fish and they're small and they kind of have a slightly pointed face and they're like yay long. So anyway, I have a whackload of those frozen, probably a couple hundred. Like it's a big fat pack. And I'm going to do that on a stick. And I'm going to probably intersperse that with some other saltwater fare that I can find.
Yep.
But from my understanding, I should be focusing primarily on small fish and specifically saltwater fish to make sure it's the correct fat and protein content ratio, and that also there's salt water in their system.
Okay. Yeah, I've wanted one of those. I've looked so many times, but I always got stuck up on like, what do I feed it? Like, how much effort is it going to be to like?
Okay, so here's the thing. 2 things to think about.
Yep.
If you already feed frozen food, it shouldn't be a big deal because you're defrosting one more thing.
Same.
Exactly. So the second thing is, as long as you're okay having a thing that has to go into the tank and then come out of the tank and get dried off, and you're going to spend, maybe 10, 15 seconds getting the fish to eat.
Yep.
But from my understanding, and I'm going to continue to do research. There's only so much I can do at a time because I spend most of my time researching equipment so I can tell people about it. They don't eat as often as most fish do. It's not like you end up feeding them once a day or twice a day or anything like that.
Like every few
From my
days.
understanding, it's every day or two,
Hmm.
every few days. They have slower metabolisms because they don't swim around; they just sit on the bottom all the time.
Yeah.
So, babies obviously probably, or a growing frogfish is going to eat more than an adult. An adult's
Hmm.
probably going to, the kind of ambush predators they are, they're probably going to eat once a week or something silly like that.
Okay.
Um, if anybody who's watching knows or has experience with these frogfish, feel free to say something in the comments and correct me,
Yep.
because I'm still learning, admittedly. But all of my preliminary research has basically showed getting these guys eating's not too difficult,
Hmm.
and then keeping them fed is not. They're not like anthias. You're not going to
Okay.
be, trying to put a minnow on a stick 9 times a day.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but yeah,
So
they are more involved to feed, just not. It's
I'll
not crazy.
I'll live vicariously through you for now, and then eventually try them.
Sure. I'll let you know how it goes. I also want to try, depending on how it goes with the frogfish. I know there are small scorpion fish and stuff like that, that I was thinking of trying, if they're capable of living together, which again, preliminary research shows that they should be,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
No, that will be pretty cool. I'm excited to see it come to fruition.
It should be
Uh,
good. Anyway, what I was going to say was back to the point about not overloading your system with gear.
yep.
Um, I'm not sure what issues I'm going to run into. Like, I'm assuming I'm going to have high nutrients if I'm feeding like whole prey items to
Mm-hmm.
a fish that's going to, I assume, take giant turds. Um, so like I do have a skimmer in the tank because it comes with a skimmer,
Mm-hmm.
but I have that off right
Yeah.
now. Like, why am I going to run it? There's nothing in the tank right now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I will probably keep it off at the beginning when I have the rock go in and when I
Yep.
start putting corals in, because I don't want to strip everything out of the water, which is something we often do. And uh, the only thing I do have running right now is the fleece roller, the Red Sea Nanomat,
Mm-hmm.
because I put Ocean Direct sand in, which is dusty, so dusty. So
Yeah.
anyway, I threw that on to pull that out, and then it's just not doing anything now because there's nothing else in the water to pull out. But I will not add anything else to that tank, not even a pump,
Yeah.
beyond the one that's in there, until I start putting other things in and I'm starting to see deficiencies
Mm-hmm.
and have to fix them, because I don't need to fix a problem that doesn't exist yet.
Yep.
And while I can to some degree anticipate a problem that might show up and might want to build a system around a methodology, like
Mm-hmm.
if I know I'm a refugium guy, which I typically am, I'll build a system around a refugium.
Yep.
Okay. Um, That's great, except for I know that refugium won't do anything and won't even be able to take off until there's enough things in the tank to actually
Nutrients. Yeah.
sustain a refugium. So I really do feel like we should not go too crazy at the beginning getting equipment, or buying all the things we think we might need, and wait until we see what we will need based on how things are going with the tank. Because
Mm-hmm.
newsflash, at the end of the day, you could have nothing on the tank for filtration, pumps in the tank and do water changes, and you're going to do great, right? You could just do
100%.
that IV,
That's what I'm doing on my nano.
right? Yeah, exactly. And you're going to do great. So equipment is a solution to a problem that you could have for sure,
Yeah.
but it is also not the thing that's going to make you the best reefer on the
Yeah.
planet. And I really think that's also a great way to make sure that you stay passionate about the things that matter in the
Mm-hmm.
hobby. So instead of, you know, going crazy with equipment and then struggling with the tank and then, losing interest that way, taking it slow, not blowing tons of money on equipment right out the gate necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
and, watching the tank evolve and adding things as you might need them is a
Yeah.
great way to make sure your interests are what's first, and the things that make you passionate about the hobby is what you're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on,
Agreed.
and then
You
jumping
don't,
off from there.
yeah, you don't need every toy to start a reef tank. Like,
Absolutely
start
not.
basic. I've been
It can be more
trying.
confusing than anything.
I've been trying really hard to stick to the basics with the nano, just
It's
as like
so
a
hard.
personal challenge. And after about a month, it got old doing manual auto top offs. I eventually bought an auto top off. And then, stuff's starting to drop. So eventually, like, okay, so I put on a single dosing pump with all for reef, and that's it so far. Like, didn't even put a power head in yet, just had super simple. And then sadly, one of my clownfish jumped out and landed on my desk, which sucks. So then I put a lid on it, recently, just to prevent that from happening again. But it's just like slowly
Okay.
as you need stuff, you add it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really hard for us because
I know.
of what we do.
I know.
Like, and this just I want everybody to understand, like, 100% equipment makes life easier, and certain things you absolutely should not avoid getting something good. Like a good light is going
Hmm.
to make a big difference for you. Good water circulation, like if you're going to do an SPS tank, I'm pretty sure you can assume that you're going to need quite a bit of water flow, and getting power heads at the beginning is a good idea.
Hmm.
But like, don't go too crazy, so you can figure out if you end up with dead spots, you can get more pumps later, or you can just get them and have them sitting on a shelf, whatever. But
Yeah.
like, I play with this equipment all the time. I have so much gear, I don't even know what to do with it anymore. It just sits on shelves. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy how much stuff. But the guy who does that for a living and constantly fusses with stuff is telling you don't go too crazy at the beginning
Hmm.
until you know what you need. Um, just I might know what I'm talking about, maybe. Not 100%, but like it's my reflex always to overdo it
Yeah.
because I've
It's
been doing
easy
this
to
for so
do.
long, and
Yeah.
I have access to everything, so it's, like, very easy to do,
Hmm.
but, like, even I am watching this tank across from me that I have enough gear to, like, land a rocket on the moon at this point. I could repurpose all of that stuff and turn into, like, NASA 2.0.
Yeah.
Um, but so much gear, and I'm just choosing not to use it right now because I don't know what my problems are gonna be yet on that system, or I don't know
That's
what I'm
fair.
gonna run into, and I really feel like, dude, if I had $1 for every time, I should say more than that. If I had $50, just in case it happens, right? No,
Yeah.
but if I had $1 every time I saw somebody like go all in on gear, set up a tank, it is so elaborate and cool looking.
Hmm.
Just to have that tank fail within like a year and then sell it all off.
Yeah.
And if I had $1 for every time I watched somebody who is really passionate about getting into the hobby, who just couldn't, maybe do all of that gear because it just wasn't in there. Like, not all of us can afford a $50,000 system. That's just insane.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't have that ability, but they end up with an incredible tank that they've pieced together over a few years, and they only got the things they absolutely needed. And, you know,
Hmm.
it, they ended up with a success. I'm just saying, like, gear does not make you the reefer. The reefer can use gear. Like, the gear is there to help you if you want to automate things, or you want to, tackle a problem. But it's really the reefer that makes the tank, not the gear.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
yeah.
No, it's very true, and it is a good way to do it. Okay, just gonna get caught up on a couple chat questions.
Yeah, yeah, let's go.
Um, Question for bulk race fly: can you use tap water in a saltwater aquarium? Yes, if you have good tap water. There's a risk most people don't because you don't necessarily know what's in that tap water. There could be nothing that's an issue and you could be perfectly fine, or you could be tons of nutrients. There could be chlorine that could affect your fish. There could be tons of stuff feeding algae. You usually don't know. So majority of people use RODI to strip it out to basically start with a clean slate. Now, that being said, I know one guy local and he uses lake water in his tank and he has solid nice tanks. So,
I would say personally, I have done my very first reef I ever did was a tap water reef tank, and it was a soft
mm,
coral tank, and I didn't have anything in there that overly complicated. But I will say that it is always a better idea to start with RODI water and then build from there, because then you're starting with ideally nothing in the water, and only things that are safe or necessary are going into it.
mm,
Even in a situation where, let's say, your tap water has, I don't know, it's clean, you don't have chlorine in it, or you're using a water conditioner to deal with chlorine. Um, there could be contaminants in that water that are difficult to test for, or we don't have test kits for, unless you do like ICP or something, that over time could build up to a toxic level. It could be toxic right away. It could already be very high, or it could be toxic in 6 months, or it could be toxic in 2 years. But the point is, every time you do a water change with that water, whatever's in it is going into the tank. And, you know, uh, every time the water evaporates, which is worse if we're being honest. If the water evaporates, the only thing that leaves when water evaporates is H2O. Everything else, everything stays. So that means if there's any trace copper in the water, that copper stays. And if that trace copper is also in your tap water, because you have copper pipes, let's say,
Mm.
then that tap water is going to be adding small trace amounts of copper every time you top the water off, right? Because if we were just talking water changes,
Mm.
whatever copper goes in and you replace 50% of the water that's there with 50% new water,
Yeah.
you're swapping the same amount of copper, assuming it's the same amount coming out of the tap all the time. But when the
Mm.
water evaporates and then you add that tap water, you're adding copper on top of the copper that's already existing.
Yeah.
So in those instances, it is it is just way safer and you have way more control over what's going in and out of the system when you're using RDI water, which should be a clean slate,
Yeah.
versus tap water, which, I have yet to have clean tap water anywhere. I'm on a well. Like, I know my tap water is safe. It goes through a water filtration system. But I also know for a fact my TDS is not zero because
Yeah.
I use RODI still to get everything else out.
Mm.
I know I have a lot of iron in my water. I mean, iron's also something our tanks need. But the question is, does concentration in my tap match up with what the trace amounts in saltwater are? And the answer is no. I already know that because the
Mm.
saltwater amount is like a fraction of what my tap has. So, long story short, it is just better to start with a blank
Yeah.
canvas and build off of that than to try to work with tap water that could be putting God knows what into your system.
Yeah. Agreed. You could luck out, be perfectly fine, never be an issue, or it could, long term, it could bite you in the butt and you'll pay for it. So, but the thing is,
Absolutely.
it's kind of Russian roulette to a certain extent. Can use refugium and carbon reactor in sump? Yes, yes, you can. There was a couple frogfish ones I saw a minute ago. I'm trying to find them for you.
Ooh, I
I
want to
know.
know. I'm so excited.
Let me just use the good old search function. Of course, didn't find it. But there was some comments people that did kept them from a few minutes ago. I'm trying to find
I
it.
would love to hear their experience.
One of them ate a maroon, but it was very easy to feed and ate almost everything. Now the size of the maroon is unknown, but
I know
it,
they have I know frogfish have big mouths. They can eat things basically the same size as them.
mm,
So yeah, anything I would add as a companion fish to that system would uh, presumably be much larger,
okay. Sorry, there
or
it
at
is.
least bigger than.
Yeah, Justin, my already ate everything, even larger fish, likely maroon clown too. Cool fish though, so it's a gamble,
If he's got to live by himself, then that's what's going to happen.
and that's fair enough. But yeah, that's crazy. I guess he doesn't like friends. He's a hermit. Um, I have went very minimal. My big skimmer, good lighting, flow, and adding bacteria religiously. Yeah, I
Nice.
don't know. I'm still on the fence of like the whole like bacteria dosing schedule, but I mean, a big skimmer, good flow and lighting, that's really the basics.
Yeah. I
But
don't
like
think adding bacteria can hurt.
it doesn't hurt. I just don't know how beneficial.
For
Like
what the yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, does the
There's
bacteria
no way
spread
to
on its
test for
own?
it.
I know.
There's no easy okay, I'm lying. There's no easy way to test for it because you can send it off to like Aqua Biomics or whatever and get a DNA test done and
Yep.
all that fun stuff. But like that's just not practical for most.
No, I agree. Touch of flow. Do you have the pumps working together to move water in sync, two pointed at each other, or a 3-foot tank? What gallon per hour should I start with? If depends on the type of coral you have. For LPS tank, I just make sure you see all the polyps rocking. If you have an acro tank, you can really bump it up as long as you're not blasting the flesh off. Like they love tons of flow. So gallons per flow, you kind of just start lower and just slowly work it up and see how your corals react to it. I personally use reef crest mode on all mine, so it's kind of random, more or less. So all my pumps are random, so it just randomly does its thing throughout the day. It is it is kind of fun if you get that standing wave in the tank that really moves everything, but it is harder on the tank seams and everything else when you're rocking the whole water column. So I want to have lots of silicone and good seams if you're gonna go that method.
Yeah, you want a solid built tank if you're gonna put
Yeah.
standing waves.
Um. Okay. EIY Kumar. I used tap water my first year. Softies struggling. No nitrates. All tested. Elk was 8 out of the tap. That's easy. That's kind of handy. Uh,
Super handy.
Do-do-do. If I miss any questions you want me to ask, just please ask them again in the comments. I'm trying to skim. I know there's a few other ones, but I can't find them all. I always tell people to invest in water change setup that allows them to do big water changes without mixing water every time. Yeah, that is a good way to go. Back in the day when I had my original nano tank, I had just like a big brute mixed all the time. I could literally just dump in a 5-gallon bucket, lift it out, and then do a water change. And it was so quick and easy. I actually did them weekly and things were good. When you got to mix it up all the time, you probably do a little less likely. So making it easier for yourself really does go a long way there.
Yeah, I just use brew containers.
Yep. If you can't afford RDI system, LFS sells it. I used to use, I'm assuming they have those in there. Do you know those like water filling machines where you go and like here, they're like $2 and they'll fill up a 5-gallon jug? That's how I started on my reef tanks. I'd go in there and just, a couple bucks and go fill up my 5-gallon buckets and lug them home. And eventually that got old. So I got an RODI system, but to start out, it was reasonable.
My LFS actually gives RDI water away for free.
Nice. That's a good deal.
You bring your own bucket and they'll fill it up for you. It's kind of awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
I don't know how many stores do that. Maybe somebody else could chime in if they know of a store that does it, but that was the first place that I ever saw do that. It's called Living Reef. This is actually where I get all of my coral and fish from at this point.
Nice.
So I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada. There's not a lot of options here.
Mm-hmm.
And Living Reef is like by far the best one that I've come across so far.
Awesome.
And yeah, Ryan's such a great guy over there. Funny enough, his name's Ryan. Ryan and Nathan, two gentlemen that work there. Yeah, they just give RODI water away for free. And I think it's such an awesome thing to do because really it's pennies to make when they're making it with like those commercial grade units that are just huge because they need it for the store. And it just makes sure everybody's getting off on the right foot. And if they have somebody setting up a new small tank, not investing in an RO unit right off the hop might be convenient for them. And then eventually they're going to get tired of driving to the store. And even if they're not tired of driving to the store, it's smart because people have to come to the store to get their water. They're going to see all those beautiful corals and stuff. Like they're going to make sure they get their food from there. It's just a smart move. Anyways, I commend them for it. And I think more LFS should consider just giving away RDI water. I think it would be a really smart move.
Yep, I'm fully with you on that one. It's a good way to keep people coming in and good for business.
Yeah, it's just good for like the reefing. Exactly. Good for the reefing community. It doesn't hurt. It's easy to do. Make sure people get the right thing.
Exactly. Okay, Mandarin Gobi. Can you use tap water or ROID water in freshwater aquariums? Yes, you can. Absolutely. I actually bought my original RODI before I was even into salt water because I was breeding these little fancy crystal freshwater shrimp, which needed like certain pH and all this stuff. So I used to use RODI water. I'd mix it like 50-50 with tap water to get it to like the right levels without me having to dose a bunch of stuff. And the second part of your question, and can you use fresh water from your planted tank into a saltwater tank? I would not do that because the planted tanks generally have a bunch of nutrients that you're using to feed the tanks, which you don't want in your saltwater tank because you're probably just going to be feeding algae growth.
So my only caveat with using RO water in freshwater is that you have to, in most cases, remineralize it. So you can use it to pull everything out of the top water and have essentially a blank slate, which can be helpful when you're working with sensitive species. But if you do not remineralize it, you will literally pull salts and minerals out of the fish. Like it's not safe for them. So, because their bodies work through osmosis. So if they go, that's the same reason you can't put like freshwater fish to salt water without something bad happening. For instance, it's the same reason that you can do freshwater dips on saltwater fish to get parasites off them because through osmotic shock, those parasites die. So anyway, so if you're going to use RDI for freshwater, there are products specifically designed to help you remineralize it to whatever degree is required for the fish you're keeping. So if you're keeping fish that are soft water fish, you can take everything out with an RDI unit and then use the one that I used to use is Seachem's Replenish, and they'll give you guidelines of how much to use per volume of water to hit certain levels of hardness for those fish. And it's hardness in the correct ratio of elements going into the water. So it's not just like arbitrary hardness. It's specific a specific ratio, and then you make it harder and harder, or soft, or as soft as you need, or as hard as you need.
Yeah.
But definitely want to add a method
Thank
of
you for
replenishing
clarifying
your.
that. But yeah, that's the reason I mixed it 50-50 RO tap water.
Yes.
Is so I didn't have to add that stuff in because it gave me the right level, basically the right levels
Yes,
otherwise.
I used to do the same thing.
Yep.
I used replenish when I was keeping an axolotl because I was paranoid,
Mm-hmm.
because the well water is unpredictable depending on the season. My well is like more iron, more tannins, less tannins. I have
Yep.
no idea what's ever happening. So, but when I was keeping my planted systems when I was still living in the city,
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely just mixing 50% RDI and
Yep.
50% tap water. That's
If
the way to
it
go.
works, it works.
Exactly.
Which ROI system should I get if I know I have chloramines? The RODI system specifically doesn't make that big of a difference. It's more about the filter. And there's
Yes.
a special carbon filter that's made to deal with chloramines. So just buy that carbon filter for whatever
Yeah.
system you have.
Yeah. Some of them will come with it. I know BRS's units have a more aggressive carbon block that they use in it that can deal with chloramines. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter. Like, you'll see it on there when you're reading through what's in there,
Yep.
that they use higher grade carbon blocks for that exact purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Devin's absolutely right. It doesn't matter what unit you have. You can just swap the carbon block that's in it if it
Yep.
comes with a lesser grade carbon block with something designed to deal with chloramines.
Yeah. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it just not to have that stress, especially if you're not 100% sure you don't have it. Uh,
Absolutely.
Alex Ramos. Hey, Devin, just wanted to thank you. Finally set up my Innovator Marine 15 I bought the other day. Since I had to downsize for my water box, I used the Axis 40 I won last year. Nice. Awesome, Alex. Love to hear it.
Solid.
Yep. Watch LFS water. They do not keep up on changing the filters. Yeah, it probably depends on your LFS.
100%.
Yeah.
Any LFS that's concerned about their own livestock, which usually they are to some degree, like if you're getting the water you get from them is the same water that they're using, they're usually pretty concerned about how decent it is, because the last thing they want is all the corals in their systems to start looking like poop, because then obviously it doesn't bode well for the store or their customers.
Yep.
But yeah, if you've had a bad experience, I don't blame you for being cautious.
No, exactly. And you can buy those little pen TDS meters too, right? And just pop it in and see if it's, a couple or if it's excessively high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure that RDI water is actually RDI. Just tap water with a label.
Oh man, that would be a scandal, dude.
It's scandalous, I know, right?
It'd be terrible.
I know. So, frogfish tank, are you gonna put corals in it?
Yeah.
What kind of
Yeah,
corals?
absolutely. I was going to stick mostly to softies,
Yep.
things that I know a frogfish can walk on if he decides to walk, he, she, they. I don't know what its gender is going to work out to. I don't even know how to sex a frogfish. That sounds so weird. I don't know how to tell male frogfish from female frogfish. Let me say that again. Um,
Are they
but yeah, I don't
are
want
what
them
they are?
walking on things.
It's not like a clownfish I can change.
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. That's
That's
the
fine.
long and short of it. I'm still like,
Yep.
still working this out. But I was thinking mostly softies, just so there's
Mm-hmm.
no chance of it getting stung by anything.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I might,
Yeah.
if I end up doing. I haven't decided on the aquascape either, because I know they don't really get up on things.
You
So
gotta
I
make like
might
little
do something
stair
at the
steps
back
almost.
that, yeah, or it could just stay on on the ground more than anywhere else. I was going to make
Yeah.
sure to have a couple of like bomby that they can like butt up against. I've been looking at a lot of pictures of them online in the wild and stuff, and they seem to stay in the sand up against a rock or a rocky outcrop. They're not like on the reef from what I can tell. So anyway, I'm going to create that on the bottom of the tank, keeping it mostly open. But I was thinking of creating almost like an arch with a bit of space up top that I could throw some, maybe some LPS and a couple of SPS. I'm just
Yeah.
going to do a mixed reef like I
Yeah, you
always
are.
do.
Yeah, you are. In the end,
But yeah,
you,
but I'm
you
going to
should.
keep it softies anywhere that it can get,
Mhm.
just to prevent any chance of it getting stung or hurt.
You
No
could
anemones.
you could also try doing a floating aquascape and just like glue your rock to the back wall, and then he's kind of
I
like below all the stuff.
Yeah, I had considered that as well. I do
Yeah.
have that tunes like frag rack that mounts with
Yeah.
the magnet, but it's made out of like ceramic, so it's
Hmm.
white and it looks like rock. I was thinking I might toss that at the back and build something off of that too.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, it could be cool.
Is
Oh,
it? Is there a Mr. Chili coral out there? They're all in Thomas's tank, exploding with growth.
all these things.
Yeah.
I have so I made like a short on these a while back where I was saying like I have all of them except for I'm missing this one. And for the longest time, because once they made them, like you had a month to get it, and once they
Hmm.
were out, that was it. They never produced another.
Yeah.
So I was missing one for a very long time, and I finally managed to thanks shout out to Josh at BRS who I work with quite closely.
Hmm.
Finally got somebody to give up their chef chili that I was missing, which he's in the back corner,
Ooh,
right there. So I have officially the entire set of Mr. Chili plushes, every single one they've produced,
solid.
which might not sound like an accomplishment to some people, but I like collecting things.
Hmm.
I played a lot of Pokemon as a kid, and I still periodically play it amongst other games.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it was really bugging me that I didn't have the whole set, but now I've got the whole set.
Got to
That's
collect them
that's
all, man.
all of them. Exactly.
That's awesome. Fish Ventura, thanks for the super chat. Great subject. If RODI is in the house, use LBS10S, which I just quickly Googled, and it's a leak detector that will basically with a valve to shut it off. It
Oh
is,
yeah, absolutely.
yes, it put float valves on anything hooked up to an RODI unit. And if you want to be extra, also do a solenoid valve with something to shut it off. Like have multiple levels of redundancy, especially with endless water supplies.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson many times.
There's and if you want like a plug and play system where you don't have to think, the Flood Guardian, if it still
Yes,
exists, is a good option.
that thing's
Just
great.
as one of the ways to back it up so that it will shut off, even if
Hmm.
the float valve doesn't manage to keep it completely shut off. Sometimes things don't work out perfectly, which is
Oh,
why
yeah.
redundancy is good.
Oh, that's cheap on there. $45. Solid.
That's
Just that.
awesome.
That's well, that's for that LBS 10 one.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a no-brainer.
Flood Guardian, $69. Still does exist. Yeah, mine gets used every like 3 days automatically as like a backup for my self-refilling ATO container. It's great. This is like so reefing can be very, very cheap if you manually do stuff. Or it costs more money and automate everything. I'm tend to automate a lot of things. So I actually use the Flood Guardian on a timer, or actually with sensors through the Apex. So it basically turns it on when the low optical sensor is triggered in my ATO container, refills it, and then turns it off when it hits the top level one. But I do have the Flood Guardian there as well. So if anything ever happened and it like went past that little optical sensor, there's that second one that would hit. And there's also a flow valve in there as well for like the third level. But the nice thing is there's an RDI unit for my NAS tank that I never have to touch. It just does its own thing. It refills the container on its own. Life is good. And I tapped it into my vivarium, so it also refills my vivarium misters, which also hosts the ATO pump for my nano tank. So this one little RODI unit auto refilling itself, it gets a lot of use, and every like 3 days it just does this thing, and it's been good. So there's a certain nicety about automating stuff. That was a side rant. I don't know why I thought about it, but yeah,
I
the
love
the
it.
the Flood Guardian made me think of it. Then you can enjoy it because you're not worrying about filling off an ATO every few days. This is good. Uh, automated stressful reefer. Automated is the way to go, but redundancy is key. 100%.
Yes.
But it's that weird like double-edged sword because like some people are like, oh, the hobby's so expensive, and yes, it absolutely can be, but it can also be very affordable, especially if you automate yourself to do things right. Like if you're the one doing it, you don't have to buy all these fancy controllers and stuff. But if you don't have the time, then that's the solution for you. Just look at automation.
Yeah, and you can always I don't think it's always best to go with the cheapest possible route just because the less money you put into something, typically the worse the quality is and
Mm-hmm.
the higher the chance of potential failure. But I mean, if you can skip the app in a lot of cases and get
Mm-hmm.
like a dosing pump that has just a controller built into it, or even simpler, just one that you get a seconds timer for, right? Like the BRS ones that don't have, it's just a plug. And when you plug it in, it starts going.
Mhm.
And a seconds timer, cheapest way to automate something, and make your life easier. So you don't always have to go for like the most premium thing with the most bells and whistles and automate it,
Mhm.
in a less expensive way, and it makes just as much sense,
Yep.
or performs nearly as well. Just maybe you won't get a notification if it catches an error. You're gonna have to be around to see the error happening if it's just like still going. But
Yep.
yeah,
It's true. It's a
but that's
different
still better in a lot of cases than you just not dosing the tank
well,
because you forgot.
different perspectives, Matt. The dose has saved me a fortune in time and accuracy with water changes. Yeah, if it does it for
Oh
you,
yeah,
you don't have to worry about it. That does a lot.
it's
Which
hard to put a price on automated water changes.
thank you for the reminder. Mine's been turned off because I have to adjust the salinity since I refilled the bin
Oh,
for like a week or probably 2 weeks now. So I gotta just test it and turn it back on.
do it as soon as you get off before you go to bed.
I'll try. But yeah, so I don't know. It's like those stupid things. It works great until the bin's empty, then I refill it and I randomly add salt and like, okay, I gotta test it before I re-enable it. The struggle is real. All right, Thomas, how you doing? Is it past your bedtime or are you still good for a few?
Dude, it's been past my bedtime.
I know. That's why I'm just checking in because I know it's like 10 something for you.
No, if we're being real, as soon as I get off this, I'm gonna go play Destiny 2.
Nice. That's a good game. I haven't played that in a while.
I've been playing it so much. I'm joined a clan a while ago, and for like the last year, just every night I play Destiny 2. Things you don't know about me that you know now.
One day I'll get back and to have time to play games again.
We should play games. We were talking
We will
about
work on
this
that.
earlier. We should play some games. Do you guys want to play games with us? Does anybody
It'd
out
be
there
fun.
want to? Yeah, we could
How
like
many of
stream
you?
it and bring people on.
I know. I was thinking about that. How many of you guys are gamers or would actually listen to Reef Banter while doing the gaming? Console or PC? I mean, I don't know. Use an option.
I'm on PC, but a lot of games are cross-platform these days anyway, so it doesn't really
That's
matter.
true. I have an Xbox and I have a computer. Those are my options. But probably PC because it just simplifies the streaming of it. I'm a gamer. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. We were actually kind of like half joking, chatting with it earlier. Be like, I wonder if we just played a game and chatted Reef, how many people would be into it? So I saw a preview the other day for the new Subnautica, which I'm like, that's like perfect. It's a game about the ocean and corals and fish. I was like, that'd be kind of fun to do.
That could be a lot of fun.
That's like a prime one.
I was telling Devin about a game that a family member got me a while back called Mega Aquarium, which is like building and setting up an exhibit, like an aquarium exhibit, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of like SimCity or like a Roller Coaster Tycoon, but setting up a public aquarium, and it's quite fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You have to. It makes you micromanage things like what fish belong together because they'll eat each other, or they're from different habitats, and you have to have the right kind of filtration and heating and so on and so forth. It's fun.
Is it fairly realistic on like the requirements?
I would say it's a blend of realistic enough that I'm not like bullshit, and also not so realistic that I'm like, this feels like work. Do you know? It's
okay.
It's kind of a happy medium.
You're not like, I'm finished work, I'm going to my second digital work.
Exactly. No, you
Okay.
get to have a lot more fun with like setting it up and making a display and all that kind of fun stuff. And then I think you can eventually like get the fish to breed and then trade with other aquariums and stuff. And that's how you get some of the rarer things. Anyway, it is fun. And maybe we could even play that and stream that. That'd be cool too.
You know what? There's enough people in here, I think. That's lots of them are most of them are PC on average. But
good.
Let's do it as an experiment 1 week for fun. We'll like just have some fun, play, and we'll just still chat reefing as we're doing it. So it's basically the same thing.
That sounds great.
You get a different visual. Let's do it. It'll be a fun like test subject and see how it goes.
Awesome.
Yep. People will be like, "What? This isn't a gaming channel," but we'll still teach reefing stuff. That's the whole point of it. Have people just listen to it anyways, but I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, just come hang out. It'll be a slightly more casual reefing thing.
This is pretty casual already, but yeah, sounds good.
Even more casual.
Perfect.
Is that even possible, Devin? Could we try less hard right now?
Probably.
I don't know. Whenever we do a stream, it feels so relaxed.
That's the point, though. I don't do this because it's painful work. I do it because I enjoy it.
That's true.
You got to have fun with it. Otherwise, it's work. So
That's a very good point.
Maybe by next week I'll get motivated and do my back wall backdrop.
You should absolutely do it and surprise everybody.
Yeah. I kind of loosely talked about last time, but I bought these sound panels that are going up soon. So I did the roof, not that you can see it, but it greatly reduced the echo in the room, which is already like a big plus for the stream quality. And then next is going to be sound panels in the back wall to further improve the acoustics. So that's hopefully maybe this weekend, we'll see.
That should be really nice.
Slowly but surely, just quieting down the dogs and the kids and all the stuff in the background. Yep. For the love of the stream. All right, buddy. I won't keep you too late. I know it's late on your neck of the world, but
Yeah,
I appreciate you joining me for the late night stream on your end.
my pleasure, dude. It was actually at a perfect time for me.
Perfect. Well, if you're ever up for it, let me know, because I think they're roughly going to be this time for now, since the wife swapped her work hours, so it's what works out best.
That's perfect.
But
Then it should be easier for me to attend more frequently. So yeah, we'll set up the next one whenever you're ready, dude.
all right, sounds good. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it tonight. Shelly Fish Ventura, thank you guys for the super chats. Much appreciated. Thomas, thank you for the late night stream. And yeah, if
My
you
pleasure,
guys
buddy.
enjoyed it, as always, hit the like button. If you got any requests for kind of some future stuff for us to dive into, just let me know in the comments after the stream. Hey guys, have a good night.